Hey guys, welcome to another edition of SDI TV. Today we're going to talk about the 2023 KTM bladder kit conversion. One of the easiest ways to make your 23 KTMs a little bit more plush, more supple on the small bumps is to convert your free piston over to our bladder kit. Let's get started. We're going to show you the easy way today. Of course, you can disassemble the entire shock, but we're going to show you the way to kind of cheat it. You don't even have to take the whole thing apart. All right, guys, these are the tools that we're going to need to do the job. First of all, 4mm Allen key to let out the nitrogen. Then you are going to need the WP or SDI special tool to remove the cylinder. Of course, a ratchet to go with it. Once we get it removed, or it can be difficult to remove, so sometimes we will use a torch to heat it up just to melt the Loctite to make the job a little bit easier. We're going to have to clean it after, so we got to make sure we have some parts cleaner, brake cleaner is fine. Red Loctite to put it back together. Torque wrench, 37 foot-pounds, 50 Newton meter with a 17mm Allen socket on the end. A 10mm T-handle to install the Schrader valve. Finally, an SDI nitrogen gauge, and you're going to need nitrogen to be able to recharge the shock. Seeing as we're doing this the easy way, we're not disassembling the entire shock. We're actually going to leave the spring on so that the top-out spring doesn't collapse the shock. First step is we're going to go ahead and remove the 4mm Allen bolt, letting out the nitrogen slowly, waiting for it to stop before we completely remove the bolt. We're already good. Go ahead and set that aside. Now we'll use a special tool to remove the stock cylinder. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. This wasn't that bad. Sometimes you will have to go and use a torch and just apply a little bit of heat right in this thread area to loosen up the Loctite. I like to just get it just hot enough so I can't touch it. You don't want to overheat it and cook the oil and cook the O-ring. So we're going to go ahead and remove the stock cylinder. So now as you remove this, there will be some oil that comes out. Slight amount is normal, don't worry about that. You go ahead and remove the cylinder. And as you can see, this whole top part is still full of oil. We want to leave that there. We don't want to introduce any air into the system. Oil's at the bottom, it's not a problem. Just don't tilt the shock, keep it in this position. So now that this is still kind of contaminated with oil, we have to go ahead and be careful and just basically clean up these threads with contact cleaner. If there is any Loctite, please make sure you remove it, that nothing gets put into the oil. We'll go ahead and let that dry for a second. All right, it's dry right now. We cut forward. We're going to go ahead and apply a small amount of red Loctite. What you want to do is just make sure you get this in the thread area. I'll actually just use my finger and get it seated. What you don't want to do is get it into the O-ring area because it could allow it not to seal. All right, so the next step is we're going to go ahead and install the SDI cylinder. It will just fit right underneath the spring. You might have to put a little bit more preload. Just go ahead, don't cross thread it. It should go on nice and easy. You shouldn't have to force it. You don't want to cross thread it. And what you're going to do is just go ahead and use your hands and snug it down. And it's a little bit tighter as it goes over the O-ring, but you'll feel it when right there, it just seated all the way down. We're not going to tighten it at this point. We're only going to do hand tight. So the next thing is we got to add oil to the system. If it's stock, you can buy the WP oil, obviously. If you've already been running your own oil, just use whatever type of oil you've already used. We're going to use our SDI oil. And you want to make sure that you have enough oil in there so the system gets bled properly. We're going to go ahead and install the bladder and the bladder cap. I like to use a little bit of grease on the inside of the bladder and on the outside. I'm going to go ahead, stick the bladder onto the cap, and what I'll do is I'll just put a little bit of grease around the outside here. And we're going to go ahead and insert this. Now the trick with this is you want to work it around and you want oil to come out of the top. I didn't add quite enough. I didn't see any oil. So what would have happened is I would have trapped air. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to add a little bit more oil. Go ahead, reinsert it. Just work it around to make sure you get all the air. And that time is a little bit much. But we're going to push that in. And then what we did is we made sure all the air came out so the system's completely bled. We don't even need to rebleed this shock after. Go ahead and turn it until it gets snug. Go ahead and use our ratchet in the 17mm socket. And we're going to tighten this until it's snug. Okay, it's snug. Grab our torque wrench. We have this thing preset to 37 foot-pounds, 50 newtons. And we're going to go ahead and torque it right now. And as you can see, it's actually torquing the top cap and the bottom all at the same time. That's why we don't bother putting a strap wrench or doing anything on the cylinder. Next step is we got to go and install the Schrader valve. And I like to just use a T-handle for this. You can use a 10mm socket. Torque spec on this is 5 newtons. But for the video, we're going to be quick. Now, all we have to do is add nitrogen. Go ahead and screw the silver piece first on the SDI till it bottoms and is snug. Go ahead and turn the main pusher in so that it compresses the Schrader valve. I'm going to go ahead and grab our nitrogen. All right, now we're going to go ahead and 150 psi of nitrogen. Fill that up. And I got lucky, we're right at 150. So now we can go ahead and remove the SDI adjuster. What I like to do is just unscrew this to make sure that the push pin, oh, I got a little far. And finally, we're going to go ahead, put the valve cap on. Nice and snug. And because we spilled some oil, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just clean it with some brake clean. Get all that done. And we can go ahead, blow it off with compressed air, let it dry. That's it. It's as easy as that.